This is the Grace Curley Show.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Grace Curley Show. We are joined by Mike Crawford from the Young Jerks to talk all things Karen Read. Mike, my next question for you was, and this might be obvious, it might be an easy Kerry Roberts is the answer, but which witness did you think was the most crucial this week? And if it is Kerry Roberts, what exactly did she say that changes it for you?
Well, I think she was the best for the defense by far. And the reason is, she admitted about that she was working on the timeline with Jennifer McCabe and Jennifer McCabe's sister, Denise, and that she admitted to being influenced by Jennifer McCabe. And she also admitted, kind of either changing her testimony or not being clear about her past testimony. So there was some changes in her, what she's said from the grand jury till now in terms of what Karen said. So it just shows that there is an influence campaign going. And I think it plants a seed early into the jurors. Why is that going on? Why are the people who are supposed to be the witnesses, I wanted to call them suspects because they're acting like suspects.
And the next thing I wanted to ask you was yesterday was heavily focused on these text messages between Karen Read and John O'Keefe. It's very obvious that the prosecution wants people to think that, they were on the outs, the relationship was on the rocks, and maybe that is what motivated Karen Read to allegedly run him over with her car. Do you think that adds up for the jurors? Do you think that that's a strong case to be made as they were bickering via text? So clearly this is something that she was capable of.
I think it really depends on the jury again. It's really going to be the composition of the jury on this. But I think for the most part, most people, especially if you're in a relationship, you recognize what that is. And you also see that here's two people that were in a fight, but you could see that they still wanted to be together. You could see it, even in the text. It's a normal, I'm in a relationship for a long time, and this is the type of text that will go back and forth in my house. So it just happens. Everyone has disagreements and you get into your fights, but they were going out together that night. That was it. They were together. So, and especially with some of the other witnesses too, that spoke to the relationship, the ones, that don't have as much, an axe to grind, let's say, you could see that the relationship was fine. It was a normal relationship. It's normal stuff that we all go through.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really surprised me about this case is that they're not just trying to convince you that she hit him with her car. They're trying to convince you that she did it on purpose, that was like a calculated move and that she really wanted to kill him. And that for me is where they overplay their hand, where I just have a hard time putting that together. Mike, one more question for you here as we head into week 2 of the Karen Read retrial. Is there a witness that you're hoping to hear from next week and that you're really focused on?
Oh, there's a few. Jennifer McCabe obviously is going to be up there. Matt McCabe is another one. And the big one everyone wants to hear is Michael Proctor. Is Michael Proctor going to testify? And what's, his supervisor, Tully, and especially Buchanan, because there's a lot of stuff that could come up. And I wonder about Michael Proctor. Is Michael Proctor going to take it all? Because I feel like they're going to all blame it on Michael Proctor.
Right.
So his supervisors and everybody else, even the witnesses, are going to start blaming on Michael Proctor. And so the question is Michael Proctor going to take it all?
Yeah, and now he's got a lot less to lose as he's already lost so much. So I think that's a really good point. Will there be a change in Michael Proctor this time around? Mike Crawford from the Young Jerks. Thank you, sir. Woke or Joke coming up next.
And especially with some, there is an influence campaign going.
This is the Grace Curley Show.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Grace Curley Show. We are joined by Mike Crawford from the Young Jerks to talk all things Karen Read. Mike, my next question for you was, and this might be obvious, it might be an easy Kerry Roberts is the answer, but which witness did you think was the most crucial this week? And if it is Kerry Roberts, what exactly did she say that changes it for you?
Well, I think she was the best for the defense by far. And the reason is, she admitted about that she was working on the timeline with Jennifer McCabe and Jennifer McCabe's sister, Denise, and that she admitted to being influenced by Jennifer McCabe. And she also admitted, kind of either changing her testimony or not being clear about her past testimony. So there was some changes in her, what she's said from the grand jury till now in terms of what Karen said. So it just shows that there is an influence campaign going, and I think it plants a seed early into the jurors. Like why is that going on? Why are the the people who are supposed to be the witnesses? I wanted to call them suspects because they're acting like suspects.
And the next thing I wanted to ask you was yesterday was heavily focused on these text messages between Karen Read and John O'Keefe. It's very obvious that the prosecution wants people to coming up. And also, one more question about Kerry Roberts.
I think it's all when you have information. So we
today to 34 Fairview, and the fact that now they're seeing where all
to
when I was watching
time
Kerry
life is eternal. Gold. Thomas Brand. You will get a free life is eternal. Whether
read Grace's work in The Spectator and see her recommended reading at gracecurleyshow.com.
Describe.
This is not a scam. All Americans can apply for the 2020.
Because it's not too hot, not too cold. All you need.
I think it's now to talk about it and kind of give a recap of what we've seen so far is Mike Crawford, host of the Young Jerk Show, which streams on YouTube, Facebook, and X. They've got a lot of fans out there that tune in constantly to hear what they have to say. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the Grace Curley Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Grace.
Now, Mike, the first thing I want to ask you about is Kerry Roberts. And obviously, this was kind of the start of this week, Kerry Roberts, with some pretty bombshell testimony there. My question for you, and I kept thinking about this after the fact, why didn't the defense cross-examine Kerry Roberts the first time around, especially considering how weak of, I thought, a witness she was this time? It kind of seems like they missed the opportunity in the first trial. Was there any reason for that?
Definitely. I think maybe, possibly, and again, I'm reading into this, but I think because she was a family friend of John, she grew up with him, that maybe they wanted to be sympathetic like they were to the mother of John O'Keefe. They didn't have any cross questions for her this time either. I also think they know more this time. I think that's one of the biggest things about this case, the retrial, is the prosecution might be doing a little better, actually. We'll talk about that. But I think the defense is doing much better because they have so much more information. And it's the same team that has compiled this and lived this 24/7 for such a long period of time that they've absorbed all the info. They know where to look. They've gotten more info along the way. So I think they have had time and info, and that's why they put her on cross. And I think it was very effective. I mean, she admitted that she was influenced by other witnesses, Jennifer McCabe and her sister, and that they did a timeline, they were organized, and that over and over again, Kerry Roberts is with Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe is always there when Kerry is talking to the police, when Kerry has to remembers about, oh, this happened later. I realized Karen actually said this after the fact. So she changed her story several times, and you could see it was influenced heavily by Jennifer McCabe and the group of them. And you could see that Kerry is more of a follower And I don't think she's like lying intentionally. You can kind of see how this works, this kind of influence campaign, and how memories change. And I think that it was very effective, especially even the judge ended up calling her Jennifer. She said, Miss Miss Roberts. She had to correct herself because the judge was even calling her Jen McCabe at the end. It was that effective. So I thought Alan Jackson did a great job on it this time.
Yeah, when I was watching Kerry Roberts on cross-examination, it really struck me as odd that she was the first one to use the verbiage of a timeline. She actually presented that herself, and then Alan Jackson started repeating it and saying, you're putting together a timeline. But right there, I thought to myself, that's not, because that can sound like a lot of people, and obviously when I say people, I'm referring to the jurors here, that can also translate to we're getting our story straight.
Yeah, and it also it feeds right into the defense too, because this is what they've been saying the whole time, that that there's a campaign here, and it's just when she brings up timeline, it totally shows you what's going on here, and that people are being influenced. And why are they being influenced? Like, why would you come up with a timeline? Why do you have group text and group phone calls and Kerry, why are you worried that Kerry's always talking? That Kerry's a talker, right? That came from Jennifer McCabe. So why was Jennifer McCabe so worried about Kerry talking? And it turns out Jen was right, actually. So because Kerry did talk too much on the stand yesterday, or the other day, 2 days ago, it talked about the timeline. So it just, the whole thing feeds right into the defense. And the fact that they put her on the stand so early, it's just, to me, that was a bad prosecution move to put her on the stand, knowing that what she was running into and not preparing her. She was not prepared by the prosecution for what the defense came at her with.
Yeah, and she also seemed, Mike, and I'm curious if you would agree with my assessment of it, but she seemed like she was frustrated with Alan Jackson right out the gates. And comparatively, and you talked about how the defense here has a lot of experience with this case. They seem very comfortable with it. They know more this time. It seems like Alan Jackson's going in a lot softer than he did the first time around. And not in the sense that he's letting anyone get away with anything, but he's being very cordial to these witnesses. And she, at least the way I read it, was getting very, very heated or kind of short with him from the beginning, saying she couldn't hear what he was saying. What was that? What was that? What was that? And just kind of getting snippy with him, which I don't think plays well either. Did you pick up on any of that?
Totally. Yes, absolutely. And it did seem like Alan's more aware of that there's that fine line. So I think he's doing a great job at it, still asking the tough questions. And she totally was snippy. Like, there was no question about it. She had an attitude, and it showed through. And I was kind of surprised by it, honestly, because I didn't, I kind of expect that from Jennifer McCabe and
right.
Matt McCabe, but not Kerry Roberts. And again, I think that shows what the defense narrative on this is, that she's been influenced.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about the jurors' field trip today to 34 Fairview, and the fact that now they're seeing where all of this, allegedly, Karen Reed allegedly hit John O'Keefe, if you believe the prosecution's version of events. They saw it all today. They saw Brian Albert's house, the yard, the driveway. It felt very early on, and we're only on day 4, for them to be seeing all these things, especially when some of the context around that night hasn't even been set up by either the prosecution or the defense about, for example, just one thing I keep thinking of is the snowplow driver and how he saw the car when he came back the second time around. Does not having all of the information yet make going to 34 Fairview this early on a problem for the defense? Do you think they should have, I don't know how they would even decide when the jurors get to go, but should they have asked, hey, can we schedule this after a few more witnesses?
Absolutely. And I think they probably did ask, and that we don't know. I think there are so many sidebars in both trials, the first trial and the second trial. And that's what's frustrating with this judge, is everything goes to sidebar over and over. It's like most of the day it's spent in sidebar. And so we don't know what those discussions were. And I agree. Like, I think it would, for justice too, not just for the defense, for justice, the jurors would be better, more well-informed to make that visit later. when they've heard all the testimony, when they know what they're actually, looking at
Right.
and looking for. So I think it's another. I'm just not happy about justice in this courthouse with this judge, and not like I don't think every judge in Norfolk County. I've watched a lot of other cases in Norfolk County, and a lot of the judges are great. But this judge, the way she handles a courtroom, I think it's problematic, and I think that's probably a lot of why it happened so early.
Yeah, and to your point, when we're watching this, and a lot of us have been following it since the beginning, not everyone as closely as you have, obviously, but I would say that I'm fairly well versed in what's going on. I keep having to remind myself when I watch the cross examinations, when I watch Hank Brennan, questioning these witnesses, these jurors they're not familiar with this case. They're hearing a lot of this stuff for the first time. It's a lot of details to wrap your heads around. And actually, Mike, when Hank Brennan first made his opening statements, that was my takeaway. I thought, you're hitting them with way too much, way too fast. Like, I think all of us through osmosis and through just reading the blogs and hearing this stuff over and over the course of years, we feel like everybody else is in tune with what's going on. But there's a lot of players in this case. There's a lot of bizarre incidents that I think you have to kind of work it in over time. You can't expect these 12 people to, know everything that's going on.
My friends told me I was crazy, but
followed this case do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that hurts the defense too, because it's really hard for them as well. But I think on the prosecution side, maybe that even helped Adam Lally last time, because he just overwhelmed. He stretched it out, and I felt like the jurors were. It's almost like when you have information overload. You have too much information, so you miss the important stuff because there's so much new info that you're just seeing for the first time. So I think that's, it's a risk for both sides, and absolutely. And one of the things that I'm really frustrated with is in Massachusetts, we don't even give the jurors the transcripts after. Never mind like a video. You think that they would record video of every witness and let the jurors go over it a couple times and maybe review it when they had a question, but they don't have that. They're supposed to take notes and remember every single statement, which is really difficult to do. Sometimes a lot of us don't hear things, or we daydream for a second, and you miss things. So I'm kind of frustrated. I think Massachusetts could do a lot better with giving jurors at least transcripts, if not video. If we can broadcast it on YouTube, why can't the court get that video and get it to the jurors?
Right. What damage does it do to have someone hear a witness twice? Mike, I did want to ask you, Karen Reed spoke a lot to the media. She was part of certain documentaries before the retrial. I saw Mark Betterow, who I know you've interviewed over 60 times. He was on Fox today saying she clearly didn't think it was going to go to trial again. Otherwise, I don't think she would have done that. How much does this hurt her? The prosecution seems to really be putting a lot of eggs in the basket of, wait till you see this clip from the biopic or the documentary on Netflix. Does this actually end up hurting her case?
Possibly. I think that a lot of this, it's about the jury. We don't know who's on that jury and how they're feeling and what they're thinking about it. I think it's possible. I think it also shows the weakness of the case, though, and the fact that that's really all they have is they have her statements. They keep talking about her statements that day, the day after, and then all of these interviews, these media interviews that they keep playing. It possibly definitely could hurt her. I don't think she should have done any of that, obviously, but I think she was frustrated because there's a campaign against her. Social media, through the DA's office, there's trolls, there's informants, there's people that even came after me. They've come after a lot of us. The same person I'm thinking of, she threatened Howie yesterday on social media. These people are insane. So I think that Karen has every right to speak out, and that's why she wants to speak out, because she's innocent and she's being attacked by a really nasty, vile campaign on social media. So I think it could hurt her, but it also could humanize her too. Like if you're really watching the clips, they're out of context, and it's like, what do they mean?
They're conversational,
Mike. Hear Karen speak. What is it?
They're conversational. Like, that's how I read them, is that she's explaining, how your mind works after you get a shock to the system and you're kind of going through a traumatic event. You start thinking to yourself, did I do that? Could I have done that? And I agree with you. I don't think she should be giving these interviews, but I understood what she meant, which is like you start to spiral. That's something that if you were talking to a person, they would understand what you meant. But the prosecution seems to be trying to use it as she was saying these things as a definite. Mike, do you mind hanging on for one more segment with us?
Definitely, I'd love to.
Okay, hang right there, and we'll come back to this, because I have a few more questions about the witnesses coming up, and also one more question about Kerry Roberts. Before you know it, allergy season will be here. If you struggle with that season, you